Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. My name is Bree Noble, and I am back here with Alicia Mathewson. She's a longtime student of mine, been in my female musician world for over 10 years. And I had her on the podcast back in May, I think it was, when she was doing her crowdfunding campaign. And this was, I believe, her fourth crowdfunding campaign, which is impressive. It takes a lot of stamina to do these campaigns. And she was in the middle of it and we were talking about it. And I wanted to do kind of a follow-up. I thought that would be really, really helpful for all of you guys to hear kind of how it went. I mean, obviously it was successful. And how she did it, really the things that really pushed her over the top as far as, being able to be successful in the crowdfunding campaign and doing it this many times, how she has the stamina to do it. So let's just jump into that. Why don't you just kind of recap, first of all, like why you decided to do a crowdfunding campaign this time for this project that you're doing and kind of what you went into it with, like what were your goals?
Yeah, thanks, Bree. It's great to be back. I feel like I'm in a whole different vibe because I was like in it when we met in May, and now I'm like my hair's long. It's like summer break. I feel, woo, I made it. Yeah. So I chose to do the fundraising campaign this time to use a Kickstarter because I've been a little bit out of the game. I haven't been gigging a lot, and I've been more of a full-time teacher. And I knew that part of what happens when you do a crowdfunding is I get pushed as an artist. I have to create content. I have to articulate. Like I did a new photo shoot. Suddenly for me as an artist, I'm like, oh, I have to show people who I am now. I'm asking them to support me. I have to. So I use it almost like as an entrepreneur, it's a way for me to have to articulate what this project is. And I knew this project was very big. I knew that it was kind of completing a phase of my career and way of being in the world. And I was birthing into a new one.
Mhm.
And I'm like this, spiritual being that likes to create rituals for myself. And really, a lot of my records and a lot of my art now I understand is it's really, I'm doing it first to document, express what I'm experiencing, what I'm going through. And then as I mature as an artist, I get better at realizing that it mirrors other people and that those are my fans. Those are people that it's like they resonate with how I'm choosing to respond to something. So I wanted to begin engagement not right when the record came out, right? And I knew I was going to do the whole thing no matter what, but I wanted to feel like I had a community of people that with buy-in. And that's really what crowd fundraising is you're asking people to have buy-in. What's interesting and what I'm dealing with now, which is interesting and could be a whole other podcast, is how do you keep engagement?
Mhm.
Because once you work to get people on board, like people don't check their emails. Like people aren't, I did a live Zoom last week for my backers. I have 152 backers and there were 10 people on the live Zoom.
Mhm.
And I was like, huh, this is so interesting, right? So we're living in a time where we are so distracted and there's so much, so there's something really cool about being that focused for 30 days. That's also why I like the all or nothing model. Not everybody is into that model, but I like it because it gives it energy. It moves it and yeah. So
I like that idea of it's a forcing function for you. And I think that was really good that you're like, I know I need to engage. I know I haven't been as engaged or like I'm starting a new kind of phase and I really need to kick it into high gear. And it's a kick your butt
it is.
kind of thing, right? So, and I love that you're like, I'm going to do the all or nothing thing because that's what motivates me. I understand that that might not motivate other people. It might just like put so much stress on them that they shut down. We're all different, right? So you got to know what kind of person you are. I'm like you. I'm like the type A. I'm like, oh my gosh, kick it into high gear. Let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
want a goal. I want to go for it. And I love 30 days. I always say, no more than 60 days for sure because it's just way too long. 30 days is really good if you have the space to do it. And when I was doing my Rock Your Next Release program, I always encourage people to do a crowdfunding just because of the reasons you just said, to really make you get in the focus mode and create content and create a community and all of that. I did want to mention, what you said about the live stream. First of all, I get it. Like you're like, oh my gosh, 157 people and 10 people showed up. It is distraction. There's a lot going on. I think it's also that you will have those super fans that will come and it will be
Yeah.
a smaller percent. I mean, I have, same thing. I have like over 200 people in the Female Musician Accelerator Academy, and we have calls where it's 10 people again, and it's
Yeah.
like people are
Yeah.
busy. They come when they need help and all that. I also think that there are people that just want to support you. Like they
Yeah.
don't need any of the rewards that you're offering. They just want to support you, and they may never even take you up on any of them, and that's totally okay. But then there are the people that are like, I want everything, so we have to kind of offer things for whatever different people's needs and the things that, really motivate different types of people.
I think that's really true. And I remember my first couple Kickstarters, I would get so annoyed. Like, I can't believe it. People signed up and they're not even listening to the tracks that I'm sending them. And then I realized like that's just not everybody. Like, and it's okay. It's like that was a part of my growing process. I used to take it all so personally. Like, why don't they want this special sticker I made? They haven't given me their address. You're like, they don't care. They just wanted to say, like, I like your music. Here's your $21. So that is like a growth piece if you are like me and can get kind of intense about things. But what's really cool about this Kickstarter is that because of that learning, like the official release of the record is September 9th.
Mm.
And so what will happen is all of the people that were in the Kickstarter, they will engage them because then the music will be on Apple Music, it will be on Spotify. And then they'll think, and this is I've seen it, they'll be like, "Oh, it's out now." And I help that happen, but they
Mhm.
don't need the actual digital files that I'm going to email them early. Because people just want convenience. They want to just listen to the record on their apps that they're used to.
Yeah, but I do think when they get it, they'll feel cool. They may not listen to it. They'll be like, but it does make them, because I've done, I've
Yeah,
supported people before in the past, and sometimes it
yeah.
was their book and stuff. And I'm not a book read. Like I listen to
Right.
audiobooks, but when I got the book in the mail, I was like, this is cool. Like I'm a part of
Yes.
this. I'm glad it now exists because of me and that kind of thing.
Well, and one thing I'm going to do, I'm about to send out my survey to all my backers for them to say. And one of the things I'm going to ask for everybody's address because I'm actually going to write a hand thank you
Mm,
note to every single person, regardless of how much money, just as my practice. Because we don't do that anymore.
hmm
We don't spend time writing letters. And I have a good friend actually right now who's writing letters as a practice.
Ah,
Every day she writes a letter to somebody. So that feels really good. And I do, the campaign was incredibly intense and I really feel the people and because I'm an energy healer, it isn't all about the material stuff. It's like it was their choice to get on that website, put in their information and complete the process. That was saying like, yes, we want this to happen and we believe in you. And that's a powerful feeling.
it is. It is. And it also it propels you forward. It gets you more excited about the release and everything. So I think that's another reason to do it. Now you feel like, I always say, it's so important to have a community because you want to have people who are like, "Hey, you haven't released music in a while. What's up?" Or, they're like
Yes.
eagerly awaiting you putting something else out instead of just, always having to feel like you're, pulling people in, trying to pull people in all the time, pull people along with you. They're like
Yeah.
reaching out, going, "Hey, I haven't heard from you in a while. Do you have any new music?"
Yes, absolutely. And another reason I did it too is that I am not touring a lot, but I'll tell you, after I did that Zoom and I sang the record from beginning to end, I was like, oh, I'm going on a tour. This record is amazing. And that may sound like this is the best record I've ever put out.
Mm.
It's very unique to right now. And I was like doing that live stream. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm taking this on tour. That feels really good too. I created this project really over 4 years between writing and recording. It's the longest time I've taken, and it's the level of quality. And that's also why I wanted to do the Kickstarter. I wanted to honor the quality of work.
Mm.
And I wanted to put it on vinyl. And I wasn't just going to make a bunch of vinyl and go into debt. I really wanted people to choose that. Um, and so that's what's super exciting now is that I get to like make the vinyl without going into debt. I have the money there to make the vinyl. And
That's
then
really smart.
that was a big piece. I was not going to go into personal debt to make this project. And if I hadn't reached my goal, which I was totally prepared to, I wasn't going to make vinyl. I was just going to put it out digitally,
Mm.
which is way cheaper, you know? So, but I'm so happy that it got funded so I can make the vinyl now.
Yeah, and another cool thing is that now you've got this list of people that you can reach out to if you are going to go on tour and say like, "Hey, are you interested in a house concert or do you have any
Yes.
venues that you like to go to in your area that I could, reach out to or do you know anybody in the area that, has a venue or whatever?" And that will give you a jump start on the tour and because you did this early enough, you have time to do those things.
Well, yes, and I'll tell you another piece, and this is a real behind the scenes piece. I was like a full-time salesperson for 30 days. I will tell you that 90% of the people that backed my Kickstarter received multiple personal requests from me, whether they were fans, venues, like it was full on. And I had a team, I had a few friends that were also reaching out to their friends. But it's intense. It's a lot. It was not social media was it wasn't people would get there through social media, but it was really because I was emailing, texting, calling people. This is what's happening. This is when the deadline is. So I'll just say that very transparently. What happens though, then this is the really positive piece. There are people I had conversations with, I talked to that did not back me. However, I will reach back out to them to book a gig and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, you funded it. Awesome. Yeah, let's have you come." Right. So you are prepping it in advance in that way. Like, because one of my rewards was to be at a yoga studio and one yoga studio went for it.
Mm,
And then another owner said, I don't, and this is what would happen too. Oh, I can't do that much, but I do want to back you. And so then they would back me. So
mm,
it is, you're just building that connection and you're learning how to really talk about your work. It's like
mm.
if you don't value yourself or your work, a Kickstarter campaign is going to be very hard. So you have to value yourself. You have to believe you're worthy of receiving this support. And I told a friend of mine, doing a Kickstarter is a lot of work, but the hardest work is believing you're valuable and knowing how to talk about your work.
Yep. Yep. And do you have kind of a practice around figuring out how to talk about your work, not without talking about yourself, but like, do you kind of separate your work from yourself, or have you gotten to a place within yourself where you're like, I know I'm valuable enough and I'm a piece of this work, or how do you handle that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm now at a place where I'm fully integrated,
Mm,
where my work is an extension of my being, and I now know my being is worthy simply for existing.
mm,
But that's been a long journey, long, 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 long journey. And that's why I'm having the success I'm having now, is that I have finally integrated. So I'm not trying to be anybody else. I'm not trying to prove I'm a good artist or prove I'm a good person. I am just being it.
mm.
And some people will like it and some people won't, and it doesn't matter. It always has value.
That's great. I love hearing that. And I know we're not all there yet. It's hard. And you've done
No,
4 campaigns, right? You weren't like that in the beginning. And I'm curious,
God, no.
in the
God, no.
in the first few, how was it
Yeah.
different? Obviously, now you've got more people that know about your stuff and all that stuff, but like how was it different in the first few campaigns versus this one as far as how you reached out to people, how people responded and everything?
Well, this is a really good question because your communities are really important to you. Like the people that you are connected to and that already know your music or know you as an artist. So like one of the big supporters of this campaign are people at the school that I teach at because I
Mm,
teach their kids. So I have a lot of backers on this campaign that didn't back any other campaigns because they didn't know me. I wasn't teaching. So like that, and I played at like a middle school coffee house. So a big piece is like, it's like bloom where you're planted. If you're going to do it, really be reaching out to the people that are in your daily vicinity. Um, when I did my first Kickstarter on Cape Cod, and that was when I joined the academy, I was more based on Cape Cod. I live on Cape Cod, but my work is not all on Cape Cod. I'm traveling more. I'm more up in Boston. I have connections in Europe, but I have communities, spiritual communities, meditative communities, and I'm about to go to Italy, and I did a retreat in Italy. So I know people from all the world, the world now that I've met through my spiritual work. So those groups ended up really backing this project. Again, because there's songs and there's a mantra and there's a book. And so they ended up showing up more for me than people on Cape Cod that had backed me in previous
Mm.
campaigns. So you do have to allow the people that want to back you as who you are now versus what it used to be. That was a lesson I had in the month. I was like, whoa, that person was like $1,000 backer in my project 10 years ago, and they didn't even come in at all.
Interesting.
But they're not feeling connected to me because it's 10 years later. I'm different. It's different. So I think and then there's those backers that have been at every single one, right? And they're just on the journey with me. You call those like super fans, right?
Hmm.
So, I think the big lesson I learned in this campaign, about halfway through, I was like, I don't know if we're going to make it. And so I had a small group of people, very close friends that I had gathered at the beginning to support me emotionally because it's really exhausting and stressful. And if you have any self-worth issues, of which I've had many my whole life, they come up during it. So they were supporting me, and I was like, okay, we might not make it. But I told myself I was going to leave everything on the field. Like I was doing it, I believed in it. And I had a friend who was one of those people who is very resourced. And when we were about halfway through, I was like, I don't know if we're going to make it because I was going for $21,000. I was like, I can get us to 15,000. I can see that we're going to get to 15,000. And she just said, Alicia, I will get you over. I will
Mm.
get you over. So she did. She came in at the end with a very big amount. And that's a strategy that people talk about in crowd fundraising, that you have like what's called a whale.
Hmm.
You have somebody that has a big chunk of money that if you get close enough, they can get you over the edge. So there's a lot of behind the scenes. If people are thinking about crowd fundraising, it's a lot of strategy that happens behind the scenes on how to work the psychology and get there.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to have that. I I'm curious, like if that. I know that this didn't happen to you, but like I'd be worried that if I knew that was there, I wouldn't work as hard. You know what I mean? But I like
Yes,
also
I
you
mean, I
don't want to
didn't.
put the pressure on them either.
Well, and I didn't. I didn't plan on that. I
Yeah,
had I had one donor in the background that I knew would come in at a lot, but like I was acting as if they weren't going to be there.
exactly.
And so, and then I also just accepted like we might not make it, and that's okay. And then it was through this conversation with her, she said, she just looked at me and she said, "We are going to make it." And I was like, "What?"
Okay.
And then I called her back and I said, I wanted to understand what she said. She said, "Yeah, I'm prepared to. If you get to 15,000, I will take you." And I was like, so that whole last week, I was so much less stressed. And then I could really get as many people on, but from this place of knowing it was going to happen. Because
Mm.
also once people see it successful, they want to be a part of it, right?
Yep.
The other thing has happened. I had at least six people reach out to me after the fact and say, like, I missed it. I missed the deadline, which was interesting. So that's the other thing to remember in not taking it personally. It's not always because people don't want to, it's just they have so much happening. And I had
Right.
multiple times where I would text someone, say, hey, just gentle reminder. And they're like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for the reminder. I'm doing it right now. So yeah, it's
Yep.
a
I
fine
know.
line.
I always, when these things happen, I always think, oh, yeah, I'll remember, or oh, I'll get to that. And like time passes so quickly
Yeah.
these days.
Yeah.
I don't know what
Yeah.
it is. And it's like, wait a minute, that happened 2 weeks ago. I thought it was yesterday. And so, yeah, you don't, people aren't going to get annoyed in general, especially if these are people that you already know, like you and are friends with you. I love what you said about the school. Because
Mm.
I think a lot of musicians think that, I want to have my fan base be separate from like people I know in real life because that gives me somehow more, cred or something like that because I have my own and I don't want to bother people that I see on a daily basis. And I think it's the absolute opposite of that. If I were to do one, first place I would go is to my church. right? Because they
Yes,
see me every week, they know me personally, they would want to support me, and then I would ask them to talk to friends or, anybody that I know in relation to my home community is where I would go first. And I think people resist
absolutely.
that for some reason.
Well, and absolutely. And I think a myth people should know that like very famous people like Justin Bieber, Taylor Swift, that's how they started.
Hmm.
They went to family and friends. That's where their thing started. So you always have to start with family and friends. Kickstarter puts this in there like, they have a whole thing of what you should do. And you start with family and friends. Absolutely. And there is no, I used to have that same thing like, oh, I should have my fans that are separate from my life.
Hmm.
Now I'm like, I don't care, man. Like everyone should hear my music.
Yes.
And so that was a mind shift I had to make too.
Yeah, if
Like,
you
but
value
that's
your
also again,
music,
that's
wouldn't you more want your favorite people to experience it?
exactly, exactly. But that's also our culture. Our culture creates these like divisions, like,
Hmm.
well, in your job, you don't talk about this. And like, I'm done with that. I'm like, this is what I do. Here it is. You want it? You know, but again, long journey to get there, Bree. Long
Uh-huh.
journey to get there. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So I'm just curious, like logistically, from the earlier crowdfunding to now, like did anything, is it different in 2025 with crowdfunding than it was back
Mm.
in whenever you started 2015 or whatever?
Yeah,
Like as
2015 was
far as, how you promote, how you
yeah.
reach out to people, like can you expect to get people through the actual Kickstarter website?
I don't think I really got that many. I mean, I did get chosen as a project we love by
Ooh.
Kickstarter, which that had never happened before. That was just kind of cool. I don't know how many came through Kickstarter. I did get emails from other people like checking out my project, which I couldn't tell. Like they were working on their own projects. I don't know.
Mm.
That was sort of interesting. I also it helped me develop a lot of content. I mean, I reached out to you because I was doing the podcast, doing the Kickstarter, and we
Mhm.
created a great podcast that I just love.
Yes.
And it's just letting me share my work in general and share your work. I did another podcast with a friend where I got to talk about frequency and sound. And I did a ton, I had a video shoot with a parent that offered, who's a professional photographer, that with a student of mine. People
Mm.
loved that content. And I used a ton of Canva and I got better at it. So like I grew a lot of skills, I grew a lot of content that I'm now going to take with me as I promote the record. So it's almost like a crash course in like what is happening now. Everything is reels. Like my social media, the algorithms are just so weird right now, but reels. So I upped my reels. So I have a lot more reels out there. People love reels. And at least this is what I'm sensing.
Yeah.
Um,
No, and you were really smart because when you created these podcasts, if you did them on video like we did, you've got reels. Like it's easy to make them from that.
Exactly. And your people are putting out reels and so like then you're just kind of like in this collaborative media generation, which for me is very fun and I haven't done it in so long. So like
Mm.
that was just exciting. And I have been thinking that I was going to start a Substack page. I don't know if you're familiar with what
Yeah.
Substack is.
Yes.
And this is what I'm now going to do is just take the energy from the Kickstarter and just move it all over to Substack and then make a subscription on Substack. And I'll be able to put up sound healings. So it was also me again, kind of re-engaging with my career. So the Kickstarter really has kicked me into that.
Mm.
Um, and that feels exciting and it feels good. And and even simple things like after we had our podcast and you're like, where's the link on the front page of your website to your Kickstarter? I'm like, oh yeah, that would be smart. I should do that. So I didn't have to be perfect. I was just
Yep.
like going and then I would get people's feedback. And I have a friend who works for a very, very famous podcaster. And I sent her a podcast I did, and she sent me like edits. You should do this, you should do that. And then she was like, have you done this? Have you that? So I was open to feedback. And even if I couldn't execute it all, which I couldn't because I didn't have the time, I
Right.
learned. I learned so much. And I was like, okay, I'm going to keep getting better at this.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Did you do you have anything planned after as far as like a pre-order campaign? Because you said like there were people that missed it and that kind of thing. Are you going to do like a pre-order for the
No, I'm just gonna
vinyl?
put all the merch up on my Bandcamp page and then I'll
Okay,
just promote it like wild. Like, yo, did you miss the Kickstarter? You can still get the vinyl.
got it.
I'll still give you the Kickstarter deal for the vinyl and the book. That's basically what I'm gonna do.
Are you going to do that before it actually comes out on streaming?
No,
Oh, you're just going to do it around the release.
yeah, I'll just have a big vinyl release concert probably somewhere, and then I'll mark it to people if they're away from me and they want the vinyl, I'll just ship it to them.
That makes sense. You could
Yeah.
also do a an online release party too, because
Completely. And
yeah.
Bandcamp also does like listening parties, which I've never
Hmm.
done, um, which are fun because then you just listen to the whole record and then people could ask me questions. And so I may do that as well.
I actually put something in my newsletter next week about that, about how listening parties are getting popular.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of fun. So the Substack is an interesting idea. It's kind of like not doing a Patreon, but doing a Substack.
Yeah, I tried a Patreon a number of years ago. I never really got it off the ground. It
Yeah.
didn't, and the Substack seems to be where a lot of people are right now, and a lot of people
Yeah.
that I'm interested in. And I don't know if you know the artist India Ari, who's one of
Hmm.
my favorite artists. She's on Substack, and
Mm.
she mixes writing and sound healing, and because I'm writing the book, there's a lot of authors on Substack. I feel
Yep.
like
Oh, very smart. Yes.
that's the for me to be a first book author. Um, like Elizabeth Gilbert, who I love, and
Ugh.
Salika, I forget how to say her last name, John Baptiste's wife. They're both there. They both have really big followings. People follow it for political stuff. It just seems to be a place right now where people are going, Glennon Doyle, to exit social media, but still be engaged with very large audiences.
Yep.
So it
Yeah.
feels
They
like
have
in
a kind of a built-in community there as well.
Right, right. And I can put up audio files, I can put up writings. It just feels like the right place for me. Patreon never really it never felt right to me. I don't know what happened there.
I get it. No, and being an author, I think that Substack absolutely makes sense. So
Yeah.
that's really awesome. And I love to hear that you can put up audio files. I actually
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah, well, that was what another friend of mine too, who works in the music industry, used to, and she's friends with India Ari. She was telling me, Alicia, I think Substack might be your platform because you could
Mm.
put up audio files like for the new moon or the full moon, and it doesn't have to be all writing. And you can do lives on Substack, videos, and you can share. So I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Very cool. All
Yeah.
right, so let's put a bow on this. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you think that anybody needs to know? Obviously, I'm going to be giving this in advance to my students in the
Hmm.
accelerator. So, is there anything that we haven't covered that you want to make sure to tell them?
I just want to say that, like, where I am right now, I'm in a very happy, healthy, empowered space. And there have been many times in my career, even this time last year, where I was emerging from a really dark place that I thought I'll never have the energy to make another record. I'll never have the energy to be an artist. And so I just want to say, like, no matter where you are in your journey, you can always come into a new phase. And as a woman I'm going to turn 54 this summer, and part of what I experienced last year was part of menopause as well. And Bree always teaches on this. We have seasons, and just to know that no matter where you are in your journey, whether you're just starting or you like used to do it, you're not sure, like you can always reactivate, you can always re-engage. And people don't care. They don't ask, what have you done before? They just want to see what you're doing now. What are you doing
Mm.
now? And do I want to, and do I care about this? And so just inviting yourself to be here now, be where you are now, get clear about what you want to create and go for it. Because we are in a time now where we need creativity. We need all of us to be becoming who we are in with as much joy and ease and play as we can. So I think the Kickstarter platform really helped me amplify what I was already doing, and that's kind of what these projects can be like. They're kind of amplifiers.
Mm, I love it. I love that is like a mic drop. So that was perfect. Thank you so much for giving us all this update. I know it's going to be really helpful to a lot of people.
Thank you, Bree.